we live in a toxic world, so it's impossible to exist without being exposed to any kind of toxins. So you want to kind of look around, and all of these have a damaging and limiting effect on the mitochondria. So, things like heavy metals, the different chemicals that exist. And then also as our immune system is challenged, you have also certain infectious agents that's important to look at. So you have like parasites, mold, have you lived in a moldy house, or is your work environment, has there been any kind of water damage there?
Welcome to the PEMF Effect, where breakthrough science helps take control of your health. I'm Dr. William Pawluk, and I'm here to guide you in tapping into the power of PEMF therapy for recovery, vitality, and total body wellness. From overcoming chronic pain, optimizing brain health, boosting energy, and aging with strength, this podcast is your path to cutting-edge solutions for lifelong well-being. If you're ready to move beyond symptom management and tap into your body's natural healing ability, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Today's episode was previously recorded on the Pain Solutions Summit that I hosted.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Karlfeldt, for doing this interview. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited about the topics we're going to talk about today.
That is amazing. I am too. This is actually my first interview where I'm actually talking about this stuff with someone, and it's piqued my interest very much. Well, before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I've been in clinical practice since '87. I run a very busy integrative clinic here in Boise, Idaho. And one of my specialties is integrative cancer. So people fly to me from all over the United States, and we have a very unique, specialized program to support patients that are dealing with cancer. But we also focus on neurological disorders, chronic infections, and also regenerative medicine. So this what we're going to be talking about today is one of my passions and one of my loves, and I'm really excited to be here with you. And some of the other things, other resources that people may be interested in, I do a podcast, Integrative Cancer Solution with Dr. Karlfeldt on iTunes, and also Integrative Lyme Solutions with Dr. Karlfeldt on iTunes. Also have a radio show, Health Made Radio, where I interview a lot of leading experts and the integrative field. So that's a great resource, and that can be found on my website, thekarlfeldcenter.com. So yeah, a lot of good information out there that I try to put forth, and that's why these summits is so important, just to come bring out good information.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that background and for giving us the information for what people can actually get further information. So tell me, why is it that you specialize in integrative cancer?
Well, there are a number of things. One is that, we haven't solved the riddle of cancer. We declared war on cancer, but it looks like we're failing. We are failing that war. It doesn't really, we're not, it doesn't look like we are failing after all the billions and billions of dollars we poured into it, not even close to finding a solution. And it looks like it is an industry that kind of feeds itself, meaning that there's so many interested parties making sure that they still have a job. So if we find a solution and we end this search, then all of a sudden this multi-billion-dollar industry all of a sudden just disappears, and that's going to impact the economy for a lot of people. So the interest is not really there to find a solution. So then we need to have people like myself that kind of work on the outside and try to figure out what can we do. But I also have a personalized reason for it. Is my father, he did actually die from cancer. He died from colon cancer. And this was very early in my career, and I didn't have a very good relationship with it. So I didn't find out about it until a number of months after he had passed away, which obviously is very difficult when you're not part of that process, when your father passing away, and when you may have solutions. It was early in my career, so I wasn't equipped with all the tools that I have now, but at least to be able to be part of the process and then maybe kind of be of assistance. So it's with that background, it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I really want to be there for people that are going through this process as they're battling cancer, because it is a very difficult and confusing time, and people feel so scared and hopeless and helpless, and so to have somebody that can guide them through that process, it feels really good. It feels good to be there and to be able to bless them with that gift.
Wow, that having something personal like having your father die from colon cancer kind of gives you that little bit of fire to kind of to do this, and also to have the passion, because had you known what you know now, your father's cancer might have been treated a little bit differently. So tell me, how does integrative cancer care differ from traditional cancer care like the one your father received back then?
Well, I mean, if you look at more of the traditional cancer therapies, they haven't really evolved that much, even though we have billions of dollars poured into it. It still looks at the surgery. Obviously, yes, they are better at doing surgeries, but it's still surgery. It's still cutting, and then we get to poison, which would be the chemo. Which chemo can we use to more effectively kill the cancer? Still not really recognizing the impact that it has on the rest of the body. And then we have the burning, what the radiation. We try to just kind of burn that area to see if we can make sure we kill that whole area so that it cannot replicate. I mean, all the cancer cells are dead. So we're still kind of focusing. We become tumor focused and try to go after just the tumor, not recognizing that cancer is a systemic disease. They had brought in a couple more tools. One is obviously working on the hormone blockers, and then immunotherapy. But they're very hormone therapy we had for a while. Immunotherapy, it's still evolving and trying to figure out when it's applicable and when it's useful.
Are you tired of living with chronic pain? Medication only masks the symptoms, but real healing starts at the cellular level. I'm Dr. William Pawluk, the leading expert on PEMF therapy. Pulsed electromagnetic field therapy is a science-backed, drug-free solution that helps reduce pain, speed up recovery, and improve overall health, right from the comfort of your home. Take advantage of an exclusive 10% discount on drpawluk.com PEMF systems. Visit drpawluk.com, that's drpawluk.com, to register and claim your savings. This limited time offer is available only to registered listeners. Don't miss your chance to experience the benefits. Terms and conditions do apply. Don't just manage pain, transform your health. Visit drpawluk.com today, and let's get started on your healing journey together.
So with integrative cancer care, I mean, what you're doing is that you are then actually looking at the body as a whole, and you recognize that the cancer exists within an environment, and it's that environment that allowed that cancer to come forth. And by shifting the environment, you're then shifting how the cancer is expressing itself. And so you're then looking at, how, what is the individual eating? What kind of emotional environment is a person in? The nutritional, the toxic, and all these factors you want to look at in order to be able to then shift the environment so that we can then more effectively address, support the body's ability to address the cancer. So it's kind of like if you trying to get rid of a rat infestation. I mean, if you keep just going after the rats, you're going to have a losing battle. But if you then start to clean up the neighborhood and clean up the environment, then all of a sudden the rats have nothing to feed on, and then they shift into some other location. And it's the same type of strategy that integrative cancer care utilizes, with patients that are dealing with cancer, is to make sure that we address the environment, so that way, healthy cells become healthier and they're less prone to be converted into cancerous. And also the cancer cells has nothing to feed on, so they starve and die. Then we can combine that with other type of therapies that we're going to talk a little bit more about, that can then really go after, support the body's ability to go after the cancer cells.
PEMF actually works quite similar and might be a good add-on to some of the integrative things that you do, because PEMF brings oxygen to the cells. It increases the circulation. It decreases the inflammation, and it really does help to build new cells. So that actually would be a good marry in with some of the other things that you're doing. In that token, tell me what new strategies, new integrative cancer treatment therapies that you have actually that's new and upcoming.
Yeah, so and that's the thing. It's so exciting to be, I would say, today in integrative, cancer therapies, because you're looking back 20 some years ago. I mean, yes, there were some strategies, but they were it was mostly just, here's vitamin C and here's a diet. You're looking mostly at, kind of like a Gerson type of diet, which is still really, really effective in many, many cases. And the vitamin C, obviously, it is a standard, high dose vitamin C is really, really powerful. But now we have, we're realizing more tools now we can then bring to the table. I mean, like, for instance, repurposed drugs is a kind of a new thing where we're bringing in different pharmaceuticals that are, fairly benign, that can then be used to shut down a bunch of the cancer drivers. Like you have doxycycline, different statins like atorvastatin. You have, aspirin, a simple, aspirin. You have doxycycline, which works on the mitochondria. You have, bendazole, which is a antiparasitical, but it also then works very well in shutting down a bunch of the cancer drivers. So that is an exciting area that we are exploring, how to use these different pharmaceuticals, like Claritin. Who knew that was going to be a powerful tool? And then, like you're mentioning, the PEMF, when you're looking at the cancer, you look at, what are some of the changes that are going on in cancer? How can we address that? The traditional care, they've been going after just the fast, replicating cells. But in cancer, there are so many other factors involved. So the chemo, the radiation, it can go after these cells, and looks like the tumor is shrinking, and the cancer patient get very excited and think, yay, we're winning the war. But there's so many other factors like the cancer stem cells, and then we have the slow dividing cells, that account for a huge portion of what we're dealing with cancer. So frequently then when you do traditional care, the cancer pops up again. So to bring in these other strategies along with, it becomes even more powerful. You have, one thing that I'm really passionate about is photodynamic therapy, and that is utilizing then a photosensitizer that attaches itself to cancer cells, and it gets into the cancer cells, and using then a light intravenously and externally in order to be able to create oxidation of the cancer cells to kill off the cancer cells. We're also looking at different kind of platelet nanoparticles that we can use also to increase the delivery of photosensitizers or agents that can then go after the cancer cells, and then combining that with oxygen therapies like hyperbaric or different ozone type of therapies, or, I have another machine at our center called the Hocket. So these are just some kind of up and coming fun strategies that exist and that we're implementing a lot in our practice with great success.
Wow, that is so interesting that something as simple as doxycycline, which you've heard for many years, then Claritin.
Yeah, and one of the strategies also, involves going after the metabolic process of the cancer, because we are recognizing the difference within a cancer cell and a normal cell. So kind of that mitochondrial activity, to address that becomes a really important strategy as well, and we're doing more and more of that.
So when I had really bad acne as a teenager, well, really the acne went into my 30s. I still had acne, and I remember using doxycycline. That was one of the things, and I was actually on that for a very long time to be able to get that under control. So something like that to be able to work in combination with some other stuff is quite interesting. You mentioned mitochondria. What exactly is a mitochondria?
So the mitochondria is like the energy factory of the cell. I mean, that's where we produce everything that we need in order for the cell to function. And what's interesting with the mitochondria is that about 40% of the cell mass is actually mitochondria. So that's how important it is. And the mitochondria controls any kind of genetic repair. So if the genes start to become dysfunctional, then the mitochondria support and the repair of the genome. And then also it controls the cell death switch of the mitochondria or of the cell. So obviously, if the cell becomes too far gone, then we want to make sure that we kill that cell off, so we can then have a birth of another cell that gives space to another cell, and that cell material then becomes building blocks for that new cell. So the mitochondria plays a huge role in us staying healthy. Obviously, as we are aging, our mitochondria gets it doesn't function as well. So it is crucial then to utilize strategies, to make sure that the mitochondria is functioning well, so we can repair our muscles, we can repair our joints, we can, feel healthy and vital, we can feel happy, energetic, focused. So mitochondrial medicine is really one of those up and coming medicines as well in regenerative medicine, but it plays such a huge role also in cancer when you're dealing with cancer, just because of its role in that it controls that apoptosis, that cell death switch. And that is one of the hallmarks of cancer, is that it is immortal. And the reason for that is that it bypasses that cell death switch. It bypasses the mitochondrial function, and the mitochondria is very dysfunctional. And that's why the genetic material becomes so altered and deranged, and it moves and to that point where it becomes cancer. So obviously to support the mitochondria becomes really, really important, when you're dealing with cancer.
And PEMF can actually help with that, because PEMF works on the cells. So that actually, again, brings in how PEMF can actually be integrated into all of this. A lot of times people, they don't work on prevention. They wait until there is a full-blown problem, and then they decide they're going to start working on it then. In terms of cancer, how important is it to prevent cancer?
Yeah, and the best strategy is obviously never to get it.
Right.
I mean, prevention is the key, and it's just fascinating. I mean, here we're looking at a disease that is probably going to touch, soon the statistics of 1 out of 2, is probably very soon going to be looking at getting cancer. So it's really the percentage of people at some point in their life getting cancer. I mean, that is just increasing, and it's actually almost primed to pass cardiovascular disease as the number 1 cause of death. And we're looking at, 1 out of 4 people dying from cancer. So with those type of statistics, you would think that people would really kind of look at what can I do to, minimize my risk, since this is such a high risk, at some point in my life. So then to, go after such a core piece that plays such a huge role, like the mitochondria, is something that people, I think, really should focus on. So, and PMF, like you mentioned, I love PMF, and that's something when you're dealing with cancer, it's such a complex disease. You can't just take this one pill and say that, now I'm fighting, now I'm battling cancer and winning cancer. No, it's you got to work on it from so many different angles, and PMF is one of those fantastic angles that really helps, with inflammation and then turning on the mitochondria. And also, one of the things that they've seen is that it kind of like punches holes in the cancer cell wall, making them leaky. So it actually, kills cancer, supports the body to kill off cancer cells that way. So things that you can do for the mitochondria, they're, obviously you want to eat a clean diet. You want to make sure that you eat food that is very organic and provide the nutrients that the mitochondria needs. You have the different B vitamins. One of the supplements that I love, it's a poly-MVA, which is incredible in activating the mitochondria. You have, supplements like CoQ10 is incredible. L-carnitine. You have the B vitamins. You have, L-glutamine. You have, there's so many NAD, glutathione. In fact, like glutathione, they've seen that people the length of your life is just showing how important glutathione is. The length of your life is directly proportional to the amount of glutathione that you have. So that's how important it is. It's one of our major antioxidants and one of our key detoxifiers, and is also one of the key components within being able to produce energy. So there are a lot of, so looking at all these different strategies to turn on mitochondria becomes important. And then at our center, we use, another type of therapy called, I talked a little bit about photodynamic therapy, where you use an intravenous laser light to support going after cancer cells. But, what it also does, it turns on the mitochondria. So it actually activates that mitochondria. Within the mitochondria, you have different stations, that, you turn on this one and then, it turns on the next. It's called the electron transport chain, or within that, you have different complexes, these different stations. And they've seen that the different colors, that we use in our intravenous laser therapy or external, and it's also the different colors, obviously, that exist in the sun. So to be out in the sunlight, becomes really important to activate your mitochondria. They turn on these different stations to really activate the flow of electrons, through the mitochondria. And that is what really kind of makes sure that you bring, you kind of turn on energy within the body. You also have oxygen, that is like the key component. There's no energy that can produce without oxygen. So to be out exercising, be out in fresh air, utilizing therapies, like hyperbaric oxygen therapy or intravenous ozone, these are other strategies that you can do to really kind of make sure that your mitochondria is as active and healthy and vigorous and, happy as possible.
Right. Oh, wow. That is some really good information, I guess, even just for general health, to prevent a lot of other things as well. And the mitochondria is so important. What are some of the things that can damage a mitochondria?
Yeah, so we live in a toxic world, so it's impossible to exist without being exposed to any kind of toxins. So you want to kind of look around, and all of these have a damaging and limiting effect on the mitochondria. So, things like heavy metals, the different chemicals that exist. And then also as our immune system is challenged, you have also certain infectious agents that's important to look at. So you have like parasites, mold, have you lived in a moldy house, or is your work environment, has there been any kind of water damage there? and you're exposed to these mold spores that are continually suppressing your immune system, but also suppressing your mitochondria. Trauma, emotional trauma is a big thing. Yeah, because actually, if we hold on to resentment or hold on to trauma, that can also downregulate our mitochondria. So it is important then to kind of do a kind of survey, your house and kind of look through and see what are some of the chemicals that I'm exposed to within my house. What are my cleaning agents? What do I wash my hair with? I soap, my toothpaste. Also, you have, we talked about PEMF, how important that is as well, because we are exposed to a lot of artificial frequencies, a lot of the EMF that are unnatural to our body. So then utilizing, obviously, PEMF then to help to kind of normalize, our frequencies within our body and to kind of help that vibration within the body. Because so all these different things, can then interfere with our mitochondrial activity. And then obviously, if we don't have the nutrition needed to be able to feed our mitochondria and support the activity of the mitochondria, and so that becomes a factor as well. So all these things are really important to look at. And, in regards to trauma, I did an interview on my radio show with Dr. Mark Wolin that I really, really like. Talking about his book that he just came out with. I can't remember the name top of my head, but you can find the interview on my website, thekarlfeldtcenter.com, where you kind of do an investigation as to where possible traumas are coming from. And even though we may not consciously think of them, they are subconsciously stored and then interfere with our mitochondrial activity and can then put our body more at risk for diseases like cancer.
Wow, absolutely.
Your body was designed to heal, but illness, chronic disease, stress, injury, and time can slow that process down. What if you could restore your body's natural ability to recover, recharge, and feel its best? The key to healing is giving your body the energy to repair itself. PEMF therapy does exactly that. Recharging your cells, improving circulation, reducing inflammation, and helping you function at your best. For decades, I've studied this technology, worked with hundreds of medical professionals, and helped thousands of people reduce pain, regain energy, and take control of their health. However, not all PEMF devices are created equal. No one size fits all. We offer personalized consultations so you can find the right device for your needs, backed by real science and trusted results. If you're ready for a real solution, let's talk. Schedule a consultation at drpawluk.com. That's drpawluk.com, because real healing starts at the cellular level.
Sometimes the simplest things you don't even realize that the stuff that you're cleaning your house with, or you're taking a shower every day, and the soaps and all the stuff that you're putting, you kind of just think that maybe cancer is just one of those things that it was one big event that actually happened, and I'm sure the cells are different. Damaged cells are different than healthy cells. How is cancer cells, the activity in a cancer cell, different than the activity in a healthy cell?
So, and that is the interesting part, and that has really brought forth different strategies, in integrative cancer care and how to address, people that are battling cancer, is recognizing that, we talked about the fast dividing cells, that traditionally we use chemo and radiation for, but we're missing then the, slow dividing cells, and we're missing the cancer stem cells, So to address then the mitochondria, or the metabolic activity of the cancer, becomes really, really important, because they do differ. Healthy cells versus a cancer cells, their metabolic activity is different. So one of the things is that obviously for a healthy cell to exist, it needs a lot of oxygen. So if we bring oxygen, then the mitochondria is healthy, and then the genetic material is repaired. a lot of energy is available to be able to repair the cell as a whole and to detoxify, get rid of toxins out of it because it has the energy to do it. But if the cells start to become a little bit hypoxic, which means that it doesn't have enough oxygen in it, then all of a sudden, the mitochondria is not functioning as well, and it has a tendency then to shift towards more a fermentation cycle where it actually just ferments sugar for energy. And the issue with that is that it's a very inefficient way to produce energy. So we talked about ATP as being the currency, your kind of energy currency. You produce a very low amount of ATP through that fermentation cycle, but it still benefits the cancer because that process in itself produces a lot of cancer signaling substances like lactate, for instance. Lactate helps to promote metastases and helps to promote kind of conversion of the environment around the tumor to become cancerous. So it does benefit the cancer tremendously to kind of have that inefficient way of producing energy. The only difference, the only challenge for the cancer, though, is that it needs a lot of energy. It needs a lot of material to bring it forth. So if we can then utilize strategies to kind of shut off that fermentation cycle and then drive the energy more towards the mitochondria, then we can then stop the creation of these kind of signaling molecules that promote cancer to invade and to grow. And then looking at the mitochondria in itself, and the mitochondria in a cancer cell is very dysfunctional. And they've seen that talk about these different complexes, these different chain or stations within that, electron transport chain, and where kind of the electrons just flow through, and that is what produces the energy. So they've seen that especially with complex 1 or station number 1 and station number 3 is very leaky. So when you produce energy through that chain, it starts to, it's not very efficient. It's kind of like leaking oil in a way, and then start to kind of destroy the engine. So it starts to then leak then these kind of oxidative or what's called reactive oxygen species into the cell, and then can then cause, actually, if there's too much of this reactive oxygen species within the cell, that in itself will then kill the cell. Because like chemo and radiation, they're what's called oxidative therapy, where you oxidize the cell and you create reactive oxygen species. So if we can do that very targeted, meaning that the cells that have these dysfunctional mitochondria and that support and really drive a lot of energy through that mitochondria, we can then create a lot of leakage of these reactive oxygen species within the cell to create that stress and to kill it off. So that's why these mitochondrial strategies become so important to go after the cancer cells, because one, it shifts it away from the fermentation cycle, where we then inhibiting all these different cancer signaling molecules from being produced. And secondly, we kind of put more stress on the mitochondria, to produce these oxidative, chemicals that then kill off the cell. And then thirdly, like I mentioned earlier, the mitochondria have the cell death switch. That's the one that actually pushed a button to say, this cell is going to die. So we are then activating the kind of the lethal button of the cancer cells to kill it off that way. So that's really, so you can see kind of the difference, and by utilizing that difference, you can then go after go after the cancer cell by using something that is healthy and beneficial for all the healthy cells, but not beneficial for the cancer cells.
So I guess that's what happens when you sort of turn on the mitochondria within a cancer cell. Is that pretty much what you're explaining?
Exactly. So you're actually then turning on the cell death switch, and you are causing more reactive oxygen species or these oxidative substances to be created within within the cancer cell. And so if you use something like, the intravenous laser therapy that I use with the different colors, then you are then driving energy through that mitochondria. And then also you can use different, supplements, to help to turn off then the fermentation cycle. And you can use your diet, like one that's been used a lot, like the ketogenic, they're talking about it, but you can do a kind of a clean ketogenic where you are not, doing a bunch of, overloading with meat and bad fats and things. So that is a strategy. Or also when you are using a lot of kind of plant-based types of supplement of food, you're then increasing it. It's almost becoming like an oxidative stress, within the cancer cell. And, but then you're promoting then kind of anti-inflammatory substances for the healthy cells that they can handle that.
Wow. That is very interesting. Now, there's talk about stem cell. You hear it all over. I've even had patients who have had cancer, several patients and personal friends as well. There's talk about stem cell. What are your thoughts on stem cell?
So, obviously stem cells are, what we use in order to be able to repair tissue and to, when there's any kind of injury, stem cells go to that location to heal that area. When you're looking at cancer, one of the biggest issue, and that is not being addressed by traditional cancer care, are the cancer stem cells. And in fact, actually by receiving chemo or radiation or surgery, you're actually activating cancer stem cells. So even though you're shrinking the original tumor, you're then activating what is actually driving the growth of the tumor. So you're activating the cancer stem cells. So it becomes a really important strategy to, if you're choosing to do traditional care, to also make sure you bring in strategies that address then the cancer stem cells. Or if you choose to go holistically altogether, where that some people choose to do, then it is important to have strategies to make sure you calm the cancer stem cells down. And you have a lot of the different polyphenols are really beneficial in that area. Like you have the black seed, you have the curcumin, you have the boswellia or frankincense, working then with the mitochondria in itself, helps with that as well. One term has been used, and I think it was Dr. Ron Hunninghake that used this phrase, saying that cancer is a wound that never heals. And I kind of like that term, which means that you have a wound, and now the more you injure that area, the more stem cells are being activated, cancer stem cells are being activated to try to heal that wound. So instead of just kind of assaulting that area more, how about, like we're talking about, changing the environment, building up the nutritional picture, and then calming down the cancer stem cells. I've interviewed one of the professors in Portugal. He also works a lot with cancer, Dr. Sergei Gerasunas. He mentioned that whenever you have a surgery, your immune system is suppressed by 40%, or your immune system is suppressed, and actually the risk for metastases at that time is increased by 40%. So which means that you think it is very, very innocuous to just do the surgery, and now you're removing the tumor. But in reality, what you're doing is that because you are increasing that wound that never heals, you heighten the activity of the cancer stem cells, and you're increasing the risk of metastases. So while doing like surgery, how important it is then to make sure that you bring in therapies, to support the immune system and also keep the cancer stem cells calm and relaxed, so that they don't go into overdrive as a response. So cancer stem cells is huge, and there are ways to measure that. There are different tools out there. I think they are not it's not been perfected yet, so it's not like they are be all end all, but there are tools where you can kind of measure what's called circulating tumor cells. And obviously, the more you have of that, the more risk for metastases you have, the less risk you have, or the less you have, the less risk you have. But just one measurement is not a be-all, end-all, because you may not be able to capture, cancer, circulating tumor cells each time. So that's why it's good to repeat the test and make sure that it still stays consistent and within safe range.
Such great information. I feel so knowledgeable. I'm going to be able to have a conversation about mitochondria and cancer and treatments and strategies. So in your practice, what are some of the strategies that you use and how effective are they in treating the cancer patients?
Yeah, and obviously if we found a solution to cancer, every patient would be cancer free, by using that solution. So, in our field, we are still learning and still trying to figure out, and it's important also that as an integrative doctor, we're not treating the cancer, we're treating the patient that the cancer exists within. And like I said, I mean, cancer is a systemic disease. So by working on the patient, you're then changing in the environment so that like we talked about, that way we can get rid of the rat infestation, or the body will then have a chance to get rid of the cancer. So some of the strategies that are very exciting, I talk a little bit about that, prior to is, the photodynamic aspect, where we use a specific photosensitizer, and they're different ones, depending on how strong they are and what you're dealing with. One that I like is called ICG, which you introduce that intravenously, and some exciting therapies that we are still developing is using, like I said, the nanoparticle approach, where we can then figure out a way to really kind of saturate the cancer cell with these photosensitizer, and then bringing in oxygen, so that we combine that with oxygen, or like a hyperbaric oxygen therapy, intravenous ozone, and by bringing in the oxygen, and then you have the photosensitizer in place in the cancer cell. So then you expose that to laser light, both intravenous and external. And what happens then is that photosensitizer will pull, the light into the cancer cell. And then with the presence of oxygen, that will trigger the creation of a lot of these reactive oxygen species that we're talking about, that will then oxidize the cancer cell. So this becomes a very safe way of using targeted cancer therapy. And then if you layer that then with, some of these maybe repurposed drugs, or turning on the mitochondria, through diet, through supplementation, you are then shifting that mitochondria, or shifting that cell from that fermentation cycle, and putting more stress on the mitochondria to increase even the level of the reactive oxygen species within the cell, to really kind of trigger, have that heightened level of oxidation, to kill that cell. And then you combine that also with like high dose vitamin C, artesunate, IV, things that are also cause more oxidative stress with the cancer, to produce different types of peroxides or oxidizing agents within the cell. So it becomes a layered approach that you want to go after it, and then using different metabolic strategies and see, like I talked about, what is it that's interfering with that mitochondria. So we want to, and why is the cancer exist? Why did it come about? In a healthy body, cancer shouldn't exist. So you want to look at the root cause. Are there chemicals? Are there bad EMF? Is it mold? Is it trauma? Other infectious agents? Different viruses, Lyme. All these different things. You want to look at to address in the metabolic picture, to make sure that the healthy cells stay healthy, and then you also and put more mitochondrial stress on the unhealthy cells, so that either they, if they're just semi-unhealthy, then they can repair, or if they're too unhealthy, that the death button is pushed and it explodes.
Right. And actually adding PEMF to that whole cocktail of strategies would make make all of the other things work so much better. So that actually is a good add-on. So thank you so much, Dr. Karl. This was such a wonderful, wonderful interview. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this out of your daily life, your practice. And I know you said this morning, because you're in Colorado, right?
I'm in Boise, Idaho.
In Boise, Idaho.
It's still cold.
Cold. It's still cold. So if someone wanted to reach you, give us some information to where somebody's able to, your website, if somebody wanted to set up a consult.
So they're different. My main website is thekarlfeldtcenter.com, and Karlfeldt is one of those tricky last names. It's Karl, F as in Frank, EL, D as in David, T as in Tom. So thekarlfeldtcenter.com, and we have a cancer page here. You can put in your information, and then our patient advocate will reach out to you to start a conversation, and we do offer a free 15-minute consult if you just wanted to chat and see what it is that we offer, and I can gain an understanding of what it is that you're dealing with cancer-wise, and then we can see if we're a good fit or not, if this is appropriate. So that is one way. Also, if you go to healthmade.co, and MADE is spelled MADE, there you can gain access to the radio show that I do, and I've actually interviewed Dr. Mahipat, so you can find the interview that I did with her about community service and how important that is. So there's really good information there. And Dr. Mark Lynn that I mentioned in regards to healing trauma, so you can gain a huge amount of information there. You can just go to our podcast in regards to cancer. Just type in my last name in iTunes or in Google Play. You should be able to find the podcast, and I interview patients that have gone through their cancer journey successfully, and what tools they use in order to be able to come out at the other end. And I feel that that's a really good resource for patients battling cancer, or just you can call us directly if you just excited. I don't want to go on the website. I just want to call and then schedule something. Our phone number is 208-338-8902. We also have an ebook, another website called integrativecancersolutions.com. So you can punch in put in your email and name there, and then you get a free ebook with strategies in regards to cancer. Yeah, I'd be happy to help you. I'm here for you.
Well, thank you so much. And this really was so much fun. So thank you, and have a good rest of the day.
You as well. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on the PEMF Effect. I hope today's conversation gave you new tools, insights, and inspiration to take control of your health. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could benefit from PEMF therapy and holistic healing. Your body has the power to repair, recover, and thrive. Sometimes it just needs the right charge. Until next time, stay curious, stay proactive, and keep powering up to better health.